You ever bring someone home and immediately feel the vibe shift in the room? That's what happened the night I brought Daniel back to our place. The apartment wasn't anything special. 2 bedrooms, mismatched furniture, and a squeaky faucet in the kitchen that made the most god-awful dripping sound at night. But it was home. Mine and Liam's. Liam was my best friend, my roommate. And up until that night, I thought that's all we were. It had started out like any normal Friday. I'd met Daniel at this small art opening downtown. I wasn't even planning on going, but my coworker bailed last minute and I figured, screw it, might as well get out. Daniel had been standing by the free wine table, sipping something red and pretending to care about a painting of a half-naked mannequin. He'd made some dry comment about symbolic castration, and I laughed too loud, maybe because I'd had 2 glasses already. Or maybe because he was exactly my type. Tall, clean-cut, with this easy smirk like he always knew something you didn't. We hit it off fast, talked for an hour, then walked a couple blocks to this hole-in-the-wall taco place, then took the train back to my side of town. It wasn't a date, not really. But it wasn't not a date either. By the time we got to my apartment, it was close to midnight. I remember hesitating outside the front door, keys in hand, suddenly thinking, wait, is Liam home? I didn't think he'd be. He was supposed to be out with some friends from his rugby club. Still, I texted him a heads up just in case. Me? Hey, bringing someone back. Cool? No reply. Typical. He always left his phone on silent when he was out, so I shrugged and unlocked the door. We walked in mid-laugh. I was saying something dumb about how Daniel looked like he belonged in a Netflix thriller, and he was calling me out for wearing knockoff Converses. The lights were low, and everything was quiet. At first, I thought we were alone, but then Liam stepped out of the kitchen, holding a beer. He was barefoot, hair slightly damp, wearing just a plain black tee and joggers that hugged his legs a little too well for my comfort. He stopped when he saw us. His eyes flicked to Daniel, then to me, and for a second, he didn't say anything. I felt my stomach clench. Hey, I said, trying to keep it casual. Didn't know you were back. Clearly, Liam said, voice neutral. He took a sip of his beer, eyes on Daniel. This is Daniel, I added. We met at a gallery thing. Daniel smiled, holding out a hand. Nice place. Liam didn't take the hand. He just nodded once. Sure. The silence that followed was short, but loud. Anyway, I said quickly, we're just gonna hang in my room for a bit. Liam shrugged. Whatever. As we passed him, I felt it, that weird tension, like static in the air. I didn't look back. Daniel didn't stay long. Maybe an hour, tops. We sat on my bed, listened to music, made out a little. Nothing heavy. He was nice, funny, respectful, but something about it felt off. I kept thinking about Liam, about how he'd looked when we walked in, the way his jaw tightened, the way he didn't speak to Daniel at all, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I just crossed some invisible line. After Daniel left, I stood in the hallway for a second, debating whether to knock on Liam's door. I didn't have to. He was already standing in the living room, scrolling through his phone like he hadn't just been eavesdropping on everything from 2 doors down. Hey, I said, you good? He didn't look up. Yeah, why wouldn't I be? I raised an eyebrow. You just seem off, he scoffed. Maybe I just wasn't expecting a guest. You said you were going out. Plans changed. I hated this. The coldness. The way he wouldn't meet my eyes. Okay, seriously, I said, stepping closer. Are you mad at me? He finally looked up. Why would I be mad? You brought a guy home. Cool, do what you want. His words were casual, but his tone was sharp. Too sharp. I narrowed my eyes. Are you jealous? The silence that followed was like a slap. Liam stared at me for a moment, then gave a short laugh that didn't reach his eyes. Don't flatter yourself. And with that, he turned and went to his room, door clicking shut behind him. I stood there, heart pounding. Because here's the thing, I'd known Liam for years. I knew his sarcasm, his moods, his little tells. And that wasn't indifference, that was something else entirely. I didn't sleep much that night. Even after Liam shut his door, it felt like he was still right there, just on the other side of the wall. I kept hearing the creak of floorboards, maybe him pacing, or maybe just my imagination. I stared at the ceiling for hours, phone in hand, trying to distract myself, but every time I opened an app, my brain circled back to that one question. Was he jealous? And if he was, what the hell did that mean? I woke up the next morning to the smell of coffee and the low clatter of pans in the kitchen. For a second, I thought maybe everything would be normal, that we'd sit across from each other like we always did, arguing over how much oat milk I used, or which one of us forgot to buy paper towels. But when I walked in, he didn't even glance at me. He stood at the stove, flipping eggs like he was auditioning for a cooking show, jaw tense and eyes fixed ahead. He was wearing that stupid gray tank top that always made his arms look annoyingly good, and I hated how even now, with everything so weird between us, I still noticed. I cleared my throat. "Morning, morning," he said, barely above a mumble. I poured myself a cup of coffee, watching him out of the corner of my eye. "So," I said slowly, "are we going to talk about last night?" Liam didn't respond, just plated his eggs, grabbed a fork, and sat at the table without another word. I followed and sat across from him, heart thudding. "Seriously?" I asked. "You're just going to ignore me now?" He looked up, finally meeting my eyes. "What do you want me to say? I don't know. Something? Anything? You kind of acted like a dick?" "Yeah, well, maybe I didn't love walking into my own place and getting third-wheeled in the living room." I blinked. "Third-wheeled? You barely said 2 words to Daniel." "Exactly." His tone was sharp, but underneath it, I heard something else. "Hurt? Disappointment?" I stared at him. "Why do you care so much, Liam?" He paused, fork halfway to his mouth. Then, quietly, "I don't." "Bullshit!" He slammed the fork down. Not hard, but enough to make me jump. "You want me to say I was jealous? Is that what you're fishing for?" "I'm not fishing," I said. "I just want the truth." He stood up abruptly, dumping the rest of his food into the sink. "Look, man, you can bring home whoever you want. Seriously, you're single. You don't owe me an explanation." But you were pissed. He rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding my gaze. Maybe I was surprised, okay? Maybe I thought we had a little more respect for each other than just bringing strangers home without a heads up. "I texted you." "Yeah, well, maybe I thought if you were gonna hook up with someone, it wouldn't be some rando from a wine table." That one hit. I stood up too. "Wow, so now you're judging me?" "No," he said, voice quieter. "I'm judging myself." That stopped me cold. He looked up at me then, and there it was again, that same look from the night before. Raw, vulnerable. Honest in a way Liam almost never was. "What does that mean?" I asked, softer now. He hesitated. Then, "It means I didn't like seeing you with him. And I don't know why I care so much, but I do." There was a silence between us that felt heavier than anything we'd ever shared. "I thought you were straight," I said quietly. Liam gave a short, breathless laugh. "Yeah, so did I." We just stood there for a moment, both of us frozen in the kitchen. The hum of the fridge, the only sound between us. My hands were shaking, and I didn't even realize it until I went to put my mug down. Liam noticed. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah, just processing." He didn't say anything else, just picked up his plate and rinsed it under the tap like nothing had happened. Except everything had. That day moved in slow motion. Liam didn't leave the apartment. Neither did I. We didn't talk much either, but the silence was thick, like both of us were just waiting for something to happen, even if we didn't know what. I tried to stay busy, cleaned the kitchen, reorganized the bookshelf, scrolled through my phone until the battery died. But no matter what I did, I was hyper aware of where Liam was. When he walked into the living room, when he left, when he grabbed water from the fridge and avoided looking in my direction. I caught myself watching him when I wasn't supposed to. The way his shoulder blades shifted under his hoodie when he stretched. How he bit the inside of his cheek when he was thinking. These weren't new details. I'd always noticed them. I just never let myself notice them before. It wasn't until around 6 p.m. that we finally spoke again. I was sitting on the couch pretending to watch some old comedy series when Liam walked in and stood behind the sofa, arms crossed. "Want to grab food?" he asked. I turned to him. "Seriously?" He shrugged. "Just thought we could talk. Like normal people." I didn't answer right away. I wasn't sure if this was a peace offering or a trap. "Okay," I said. "Yeah, let's go." We ended up at this little ramen place, a few blocks down. We'd been there a dozen times before, always at night, always after shitty days when neither of us wanted to cook. It felt familiar. Comfortable. And weirdly, that made everything more tense. We didn't talk much while we ordered. But once the food came, Liam finally leaned forward. "I shouldn't have snapped at you," he said. I didn't respond. I let the silence sit for a second. He sighed. "I'm not great at this kind of stuff." "What kind of stuff?" I asked, not letting him off easy. He looked down at his bowl. "Feelings. Figuring out what I want. Figuring out if I want you." My stomach flipped. "Liam, I'm not saying I'm gay," he said quickly, like he needed to get it out before I misunderstood. "I don't even know what I am. But you, the idea of you being with someone else, it did something to me. And I hated it." I set my chopsticks down. "Why didn't you say anything before?" "Because I thought it was just me being possessive. I didn't want to ruin what we had." I stared at him. "And now?" He met my eyes. "Now I think I already did." The table went quiet. Around us, people were laughing, slurping noodles, clinking glasses, and we sat in this strange little bubble of truth and confusion, neither of us sure what to do next. Finally, I spoke. "Look, I don't want to push you into anything. If this is just some weird reaction to jealousy, it's not," he cut in. "It's more than that." The way he said it made my chest ache. "You can't keep pretending we're just roommates," I said, voice low. "Not if you're gonna get jealous every time someone shows interest in me." He looked like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. Instead, he reached across the table and brushed his thumb over the back of my hand. Just once. Soft. Like he was trying to tell me something he couldn't say out loud. "I'm not ready for all the answers yet," he said. "But I don't want to lose you. You're not gonna lose me," I told him. "But you can't have it both ways," he nodded. "I know." We walked home together, neither of us speaking. The air between us was charged, like a storm was coming, but we didn't know when it would hit. When we got back, Liam lingered by my door. "You going to bed?" he asked. Eventually. He hesitated. "Mind if I come in for a bit?" I didn't. Not at all. Liam stepped into my room like he'd never been in there before, even though we'd hung out in there dozens of times. Movie nights. Late night study sessions. That one week I had the flu, and he brought me tea every morning without saying a word about it. But this time was different. He stood near the doorway, hands shoved into the pockets of his hoodie like he didn't know what to do with himself. I sat down on the edge of my bed and watched him, unsure if I should say something or wait for him to speak first. He looked around at my bookshelf, my laundry basket, the half-empty cup of water on my nightstand. Finally, he said, "This feels weird." I gave a half laugh. "You think?" He looked down, then ran a hand through his hair and let out a long breath. "I don't know what I'm doing. That makes two of us." Liam walked over slowly, then sat down next to me, close enough that I could feel the heat coming off his body. We sat in silence for a few moments, both of us staring straight ahead like we were waiting for the room to tell us what to do. Then he said, "Can I ask you something?" "Yeah." "Would it have gone further with Daniel?" I turned to him. His eyes were on the floor and his voice was quiet, but I could hear the edge in it. Not quite anger, more like worry. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe." He seemed nice. He nodded, jaw tightening. "But I didn't want him like that," I added. That made him glance over at me. "Not the way I think I want you." His breath caught. I didn't plan on saying it. I hadn't even admitted it to myself until it came out. But once it was out there, I didn't take it back. Liam stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Then he looked away and rubbed his hands over his knees, like he didn't know what to do with the words hanging between us. "I'm scared," he said finally. "I know. I don't want to mess this up." "You already kind of did," I said, half teasing, "but I'm still here." That made him smile, just a little. The first real smile I'd seen on his face in 2 days. "You drive me crazy," he said, voice low. "You're not exactly a walk in the park either." We were quiet again. Then, slowly, he reached for my hand. Not in a dramatic, sweeping gesture, just slid his fingers over mine, awkward and a little shaky, like he was afraid I'd pull away. I didn't. My pulse jumped at the contact. Something about the simplicity of it, just our hands, resting there, hit harder than if he'd kissed me. We sat like that for a while. Just holding hands, barely touching, not saying anything. There was no soundtrack, no movie playing in the background. Just the faint hum of the heater and the sound of our breathing, oddly in sync. Then, very softly, he said, "I don't know what this is yet, but I don't want it to stop." I turned to him. "Then, don't stop it." Liam didn't move for a second. Then he let go of my hand and leaned in, slow and hesitant, until his forehead rested against mine. Not a kiss. Not yet. Just that. Close enough that I could feel his breath. Close enough that I had to close my eyes. "I keep thinking," he whispered, "about what it would have been like if I didn't come home last night." I swallowed. "What do you mean?" "If I hadn't seen you with him, would I still be pretending I didn't feel this?" I didn't have an answer. He pulled back just slightly and looked at me again, this time with something softer in his eyes. No walls. No bravado. Maybe I needed to see you with someone else to realize I couldn't stand the idea. I felt my heart beat in my throat. Then, finally, he kissed me. It wasn't rushed. Wasn't perfect either. A little clumsy. A little unsure. But it was Liam. Warm and real and completely different from anything I'd felt before. When he pulled away, he looked nervous, like he was waiting for me to say something. So I did the only thing that made sense. I kissed him back. I don't know what I expected after the kiss. Maybe fireworks. Maybe some big dramatic moment where everything fell into place. But the truth is, after we kissed, we just sat there. Quiet, kinda dazed, like we were both waiting for the floor to shift under us and tell us what the hell to do next. Liam looked like he wanted to say something, but he didn't. Instead, he leaned his head back against the wall and let out a slow exhale. "That was something," he said. "Yeah," I said. "It was." We didn't kiss again that night. Didn't do anything else either. He stayed in my room, though. We lay on top of the blanket, fully clothed, just sort of existing next to each other. At one point, he dozed off, his arm brushing mine. I couldn't sleep. My mind wouldn't shut off. The questions kept coming. What does this mean? What are we now? Does he regret it already? Around 3 a.m., I finally drifted off. When I woke up, he was gone. His side of the bed was cold, and the door was cracked open like he'd left in a hurry. I sat up, rubbed my eyes, and tried to calm the quiet panic blooming in my chest. He probably just went to get coffee, I told myself. I went into the kitchen. He wasn't there. Living room? Empty. Bathroom? Nope. He wasn't anywhere. I checked my phone. No texts. No missed calls. Nothing. And just like that, the confusion turned into dread. I paced for a bit, then finally messaged him. "Me? Hey, where'd you go?" No response. I stood in the middle of the apartment for a few more minutes, debating if I should be worried or just pissed off. Then I heard the key in the lock. Liam walked in, holding a bag from the corner bakery and 2 coffees. His hair was a mess, hoodie half-zipped, and he looked like he hadn't slept either. "Hey," he said, like nothing was weird. "Figured we could use carbs." I blinked. "You just left?" He handed me a coffee. "You were asleep. I didn't want to wake you. I thought you ghosted." Liam's face shifted. "Ghosted?" Why the hell would I ghost you? I don't know, I said, more defensive than I meant to be. We kissed, then you disappeared, and I didn't know if you were freaking out or... I wasn't, he interrupted. I'm not. We stood there for a moment, both holding our coffees, not drinking them. I just needed air, he said quietly. This is all new to me. I'm trying not to screw it up. I softened. You could have just left a note or something. He nodded. Yeah, I know. We sat on the couch and ate pastries in silence. Neither of us brought up the kiss again. It felt like we were both too scared to break the fragile thing that had just started forming between us. Later that afternoon, I got a text from Daniel. Daniel, last night was fun, smiley face. If you ever want to hang again, let me know. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't respond. Instead, I looked over at Liam, who was on the other end of the couch, legs tucked under him, scrolling on his phone with that same serious look he always got when he was reading something too closely. I wanted to tell him about the text, maybe even show it to him, but I didn't, not because I was hiding it, but because I already knew the answer. The next week was weird. Not bad, just weird. Liam and I didn't talk about the kiss. We didn't talk about what it meant or where we were going or any of the things normal people probably would. Instead, we just kept living our lives like we were pretending nothing happened, even though everything had changed. He'd still knock on my door late at night sometimes, claiming he couldn't sleep, and we'd end up watching dumb YouTube videos until 2 a.m. Other nights, he'd sit a little closer on the couch than he used to. Our knees would touch, our arms would brush, and neither of us would move away. But we didn't kiss again. We didn't even really touch. It was like we were stuck in this holding pattern, too scared to go forward, too far gone to go back. And honestly, I was starting to lose my mind. It all came to a head on Thursday. I had a date. Not with Daniel. I'd never responded to that text, but with someone else. Alex. A guy the first met through a mutual friend at a study group. Tall, shy, kind of artsy in a way that felt safe. When he asked me out for coffee, I said yes before I could stop myself. Not because I was trying to make Liam jealous, but because I needed clarity. I needed to know if what I felt for Liam was real, or if I was just clinging to something that wasn't going anywhere. Liam didn't know about the date. I didn't plan to tell him. But of course, the universe had other plans. I came back to the apartment around 6 p.m. I figured Liam wouldn't even be home yet. He usually stayed late at the gym on Thursdays. But when I opened the door, he was right there in the kitchen, pouring a protein shake. He glanced up. Hey, I said, trying not to look suspicious. Didn't think you'd be home. Came back early. My trainer bailed. I nodded, walking past him toward the fridge, trying to act normal. Cool. You look nice, he said, almost casually. I froze for half a second. What? Your shirt. You only wear that one when you're trying to impress someone. I turned slowly. He was leaning against the counter now, arms crossed, eyebrows slightly raised. I felt a flush crawl up my neck. It was just coffee. Right. His voice was tight. With who? I hesitated. Just a guy. His jaw clenched. So that's how it is now? I frowned. What are you talking about? You kissed me one night, he said. Then go out with someone else the next week like nothing happened? It's been a week, Liam. You haven't said a single thing about that night. I didn't even know if you wanted anything more. You could have asked. So could you. He pushed away from the counter. I didn't think I had to. I thought we were figuring it out. Well, maybe I got tired of waiting around while you played the I don't know what I want game. That hit him. I saw it in his face. You think I'm playing a game? He asked, voice lower now. I don't know what to think. He stepped closer, eyes locked on mine. Do you like him? I didn't answer. He took another step. Do you want him the way you want me? Don't do this. I need to know. My heart was pounding. No, I said. I don't want him like I want you. But I also don't want to keep doing this half-assed thing where we pretend we're just roommates and ignore what's going on. Liam looked like he was trying to hold something in, his hands curled into fists at his sides. Then don't ignore it, he said. Don't go looking for something safe just because I'm still trying to figure myself out. I looked away. I'm not ashamed of what happened, he said, voice softer now. I don't think it was a mistake. I'm scared. I nodded slowly. So am I. He stepped even closer, our bodies now just a few inches apart. But if you're in, he said, I'll try. For real this time. I looked up at him. He wasn't being casual anymore. He wasn't teasing. He was just Liam, honest, scared, and finally showing up. So I did the only thing I could do. I leaned in, wrapped my fingers into the hem of his hoodie, and kissed him. This time, it wasn't clumsy. It was real. It was us. The kiss didn't solve everything. It wasn't some magical fix that suddenly made all the confusion disappear. But it was a beginning. A solid, grounded moment where we both said yes. Not just to each other, but to whatever this thing between us was becoming. When we pulled apart, Liam looked at me like he wasn't sure if he'd just jumped off a cliff or landed safely for the first time. So, he said, voice still rough, what happens now? I laughed under my breath. You tell me. You're the one who showed up with a protein shake and emotional whiplash. He rolled his eyes, but there was a tiny smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. I want to try, he said after a pause. For real, no more pretending, no more mixed signals. Just us. Whatever that looks like. And just like that, the tension cracked. We didn't go out that night. We didn't even leave the apartment. Instead, we curled up on the couch, legs tangled under a blanket, watching reruns of some show we'd seen 100 times. It was the first time in days I felt like I could breathe. Every now and then, Liam would glance at me, like he was still making sure I was real, like he was afraid I might vanish if he looked away too long. At one point, he reached over and ran his fingers down my arm. Light, casual, but I felt it all the way through me. He whispered, "You make it really hard to pretend I'm straight, you know that?" I snorted. You were doing a terrible job of pretending, by the way. Oh yeah? Liam, you literally glared at a guy for bringing me home after a gallery night. That's not exactly the behavior of someone who's just a roommate. He laughed then, and for the first time in a while it wasn't strained. It was light, free. We didn't rush anything that night. We didn't try to define it or plan the next 6 months. We just let ourselves be two friends who had crossed a line, realized it wasn't a mistake, and decided to see where it could go. The next morning, we made breakfast together. He stood behind me at the stove, arms looping around my waist like it was the most natural thing in the world. And maybe it was. Later that week, Daniel texted again. I finally replied. Me, hey. Just being honest, something unexpected happened. Thanks for the invite though. You're cool. Hope things go well with you. He sent back a thumbs up and a smiley. No hard feelings. That weekend, Liam and I told a few close friends. Some of them were surprised. A few weren't. One of our friends actually said, "Took you long enough," which made Liam blush so hard I thought his ears would catch fire. We weren't perfect. There were still awkward moments, still late night talks, where Liam would admit how strange it all felt, learning how to want something he'd never let himself want before. But we were figuring it out, together. And the best part? I never had to wonder how he felt when someone else looked at me. Because now, when he got jealous, it was part of something real, something ours.